Welcome to a new series for this channel and a new thing for myself. Hopefully I am clear and legible, let me know if I am not. Like many of you, I am in coronavirus lockdown and I have a dozen radio controlled projects built that I am stuck not being able to test. Instead, I will be looking at some things I have built, in quotes, over a decade ago and see how they hold up. Today I am looking at Devastation, released in 2003, though I first played online at least a year later, I can't quite recall. I am going to get this out the way first. The first map I published was CTF-Liner with an underscore, possibly Beta 1 or Beta 2. I remember making this map, sending it off to be played, playing it, getting feedback, good and bad, revising it. And after all that, I don't have it. I've scoured my backups and what remains of the map packs online and have come up empty. This is the longest of long shots, though if you're watching this video I may be in with a chance. If you still have your map files from back in the day, could you have a look and see if this map is here? I'd be extremely grateful for anyone to at least check. Very unlikely, but it's worth asking. I will start off this series with a lie. This map isn't unseen, it was played online very briefly, possibly as late as 2007 or even 2008, I can't quite recall. It's certainly one of the last things I ever played online, and it may have been among the last maps ever produced. Skip ahead if you just want to see the map. I thought I would give a brief overview of the idea behind this. So, capture the flag, 2 teams, 2 bases, though for clarity I'm just going to show red with 6 players. 3 of the red team pile into the control room, while the other 3 wait patiently at the bridge. The blue laser fence blocks red from going directly across. The red players in the control room hit the switch and extends the bridge. The red players move across and they drop down a one-way drop into the blue base. Red takes the flag and makes their way to the other bridge. The red players still in the control room need to hit the other switch to allow the flag carrier back to cap. Obviously blue are trying to do the same thing, and whoever controls the switches controls the map. So I'm jumping in and seeing where all of my player start spawn positions are, and this one's in a pipe, seems logical. That's a helicopter in the game, by the way. It's actually kind of annoying now that I'm seeing it go by again and again. So this map is exactly what it looks like. Not going to waste too much time just now, I'll just do the actual capping of the flag and then we can have an interesting talk about some other things. Needs to be said there's no bot support for this game, so we just have to pretend that this is an exciting match with 12 other people. So that's my bridge going down, and again pretend that somebody's putting this down at a different time. That's the enemy bridge going down. The one thing I will say is the version of this which was played online. The version that was played online, these bridges were open, they weren't enclosed like this. That's one change I must have made on this file. So this is the all-important one-way drop. So I'm not getting back up there. And that's a BSP hole. That's not good. Let's just ignore it. And that noise brings me immense nostalgia. It's hard to overstate. So again, just pretend that my team's just put this bridge down. And that's how you cap by yourself in a map that nobody's played in 15 years. So, talking a bit more about this, it looks very typical of user-made maps. All of these assets came with the game. People did make their own assets, but not often, and they were naturally quite protective of them. The thing which strikes me is that scale is a little bit off. That's a container, that looks about right, but there's other things just kind of stick out as being not quite there. This walkway is a good example. It's not terrible, but it's just a little bit wrong. This kind of room's a good example of what I'm talking about. Looks fine at a glance, but you know, your head is kind of at desk height or cooker height as it happens. It's not quite right. Don't know what that's doing there. Right, I deliberately didn't show you this, but I guess I'm going to have to. This is bringing back a vague memory of some sort of in-joke in the community. You know, cookies. This has been a early meme, I guess you would call it. So that's an image I've stolen off of Google Images, you know, decades ago. Hopefully don't feel too guilty about it. Interesting feature. There's no immediate reason to come out here. I must have had a plan to put something, you know, more elaborate out here, maybe health pickup or some sort of platform to get somewhere else. And again, I can't look out the windows, the scale's definitely off here. And there's the usual problem of you know, there's lighting but there's no lights. It would just take a couple of meshes, but again, map's still in development. Now, we have one thing to talk about. So the map I was telling you about, CTF-Liner, there's one thing I remember. One of the very last things I put in the map was an ambient sound of a foghorn. You know, ship in fog makes sense, so I put it in and compiled the map, sent it off, and people started playing it. And I didn't realise that that ambient sound will play on a loop continuously. There's no toggling of it, it just goes on and on and on. So right, imagine that playing continuously for 15 minutes whilst you're trying to concentrate on a game. It was not well received, I think would be a gentle way of putting it. I very quickly threw out a version which fixed it, I think. But as penance for that, in this map, you can turn it on and off, which could be used as a psychological warfare for annoy the other team, I suppose. And this is a bit where I get bored and turn on the developer options. That helicopter is on a loop. It's not like a new one is spawned, goes past and then vanishes. It's just the one mesh going round and round and round, and you can hear it when it's going back. Actually, I wonder if I can show you that. R mode 1. That's something that I remember. And yeah, that's a BSP hole. We'll talk about that later. And the rotors aren't actually turning, it's a texture. So if I recall, it's 4-point loop, or maybe only 3. So it goes beyond the distance of the fog. Ah, there it goes. And that's why you can hear it when it goes. You can hear it when it goes back. Or mode 5. This looks better and worse than I remember. It's very typical of maps. It's not very bright and cheery. I think it would work better either much brighter or much darker. Blue sky, sun, sparkly water, that could work. If it was the dead of night and it was just a ship silhouetted against a starry sky and the lights, illuminating the paths to and from the bases, that could work. As it is, it's just, well, dull, grey. Not a lot of contrast. Doesn't look terrible. Again, early version, focusing on gameplay. There's no way of getting to this forward bit of the ship, but I'm sure it was planned. Same with the little deck here and the roof. Oh, that helicopter is getting very annoying. Well, maybe I should have had an option to shoot that down if it was annoying people as much. This map is mostly symmetric, not perfectly. There's minor differences in the base layouts, but nothing drastic. Walk, that was it. This is a not quite secret. Just a couple of health pickups. I think I was thinking of balance. One of the things that would happen in these matches is you would drop onto this ship and then your team might lose control of the control room, the bridges go up, you're stuck here. So I think it was to give people stranded on the ships more of a fighting chance against the people respawning. And there's an equivalent on that side which isn't really worth bothering with, it's just the same thing. It's such a shame there's no bot support. It might have been quite hard to program them to kind of obey the rules of this map as lowering the bridge, etc. There were some quite tense experiences online. The classic is you go across and then just as you're trying to escape with the flag, they take the switches back and raise it up, or somebody raises it while you're in it, which in the original version this was played, you would be going for a swim, a fatal swim. So no matter where you were, you're always thinking, how is your team doing with the switches? Can you trust to go across? If you leave both bridges down, then the enemy can get across to your ship just as easily as you can get across to theirs, but your flag carrier is depending on you to raise and lower at the right times. I remember some great matches on this, not many, but I did have some good experiences walking across these platforms and just wondering what was going on in that control room. It's possible that had this been played a bit more, there would have been a meta, as they call it nowadays, formed, where there's some ratio, ideal ratio of people in the control room versus people trying to cap, because you can't send everybody here. There's no one to cap, but if you send too many people to cap, you won't be able to maintain control of the switches. And it's possible it would have ended up just stalemating. Maybe after enough time on this map, there'd be just a guaranteed strategy, and it might have just been prone to, as I said, frustrating stalemates where nobody wants to cross because they know as soon as they get there the bridge will go up and they'll be stuck. Of course, this is all just basically pointless speculation. Oh, that's actually kind of cool when you see it from this angle. One thing I believed in this map was sniper sightlines. Dopefish, all weapons, particle laser. That's a noise which brings me a lot of memories, satisfaction and frustration. So this is instant hit, perfect accuracy with a scope. So line of sight to anyone is a pretty powerful ability. And I always felt there should be one way of getting from your spawn to the objective that didn't expose you to sniper sightlines. If you want to do a sniper fight, absolutely fine, but I don't think you should have to worry about it. A kind of classic compromise is you've got a way of going which is sheltered from snipers but isn't very good in itself, and there's a way of going which is open to snipers but provides a nice flank route or some other advantage. I think that's roughly what I was going for with the layout of these bases. Yes, some of it is open, but you know, the flags, the spawns, you at least don't have the incredibly annoying experience of spawning, going to chase somebody with your flag and just getting particle lasered from, you know, halfway across the world. This surface here should actually be invisible because you can't see it under any normal circumstance. So why waste the memory displaying it? Same goes for probably surfaces at the back of the ships and maybe even the other side, because you're not going to see that. When you come out here you can actually see the edge of the actual physical map space. This is subtractive geometry, which we'll talk about at length, possibly too much length later on. I think that's all I can say about CTF-DB-Liner brackets final. There's a number of flaws which a later map we'll be looking at attempted to address. Like it's a choke point, there's only one way into the control room, so you would have the most vicious of fights happening just in this corridor and just at that laser fence. And, you know, not much happening anywhere else. I think I've gone on long enough. As a little extra thing, this is the same map. Well, it's a copy of the map. I have made a few changes. I have brightened the lighting and the sky. This is more of an idea what it would look like. Well, not so dull. I thought I would show one thing. I've moved the drawbridge switches out to here, so you can actually see the action. Isn't that exciting? Of course, there's a whole debate about how fast these should go and what axis they should rotate on. Obviously, if you're most of the way along and they rise like this, you're getting pushed back, or fall back, I should say. Lot of things to think about. And this is what happens when you are outside the level geometry entirely. As an extra thing, just wanted to take a look at this map in the editor and point a few things out. Starting with this smoke effect here, which isn't actually something I made. The particle system in this engine is quite involved. So that's stolen from, if I recall, there's a cutscene in the single player campaign for this game, which is based on a ship, which was basically the inspiration for this entire thing. So that particle effect was literally just copy pasted from there. The same applies to the wake of the ship. exactly the same thing, just copy-pasted it. Now, something you're not going to really notice in game, but you can see it here, they're not quite synchronised. The speed of the wake particles isn't quite synced with the texture panning of the water. And it's because they use a different, I guess you'd call it a different coordinate system, where the moving water texture is a value, but it can't be directly related to the value of the velocity of the particles of the wake. Sorry, that didn't sound great. But you know, it's basically two numbers which don't directly correlate. And there will be a mathematical way of synchronising them. But this is the old trial and error, just keep changing them until they work. And that's what I've done. So I was talking about this BSP hole, BSP binary space partitioning, and subtractive geometry all sounds like a load of gobbledygook. It still kind of does to me after 15 years. But basically, when you come out of the space of the game world on the editor, all you see is this black void with this grid. And in this engine, this space is considered solid. I know it looks like a black void, but if you want to make a level, the first thing you do is essentially make a big box, hit a button over here which says subtract, and it excavates out that space. Imagine trying to build a kind of underground house. You have to subtract things, but you can also add things back in. So yeah, subtractive geometry is the buzzword here. And there's a whole load of really complicated stuff involving occlusion and all sorts of things which I don't understand or claim to understand with any real depth. But essentially what happens with this BSP hole, it's a glitch between the subtractive geometry and the void. It should just be, this is literally a big box. And this here is some sort of error in the maths of it all. Yeah, see there's a view here, BSP cuts, which should show, I think because this is all white, that's actually a problem. This should all be different colours showing you the, oh dear. Yeah, this is exactly what a painfully broken map looks like. I'm rebuilding the geometry there, and this is all wrong. So yeah, essentially something's just gone wrong with the geometry here. It's usually, if you have a brush, later on in this series I'm going to have a video talking more about the editor, but somewhere in here the BSP geometry in the level has gone wrong and affected the BSP geometry in the entire level, and the result is that little hole up there, which is pretty... Oh, has it disappeared? I can't tell. And that's actually a fairly benevolent BSP hole, which isn't there anymore. Has it just fixed itself? I'm not sure. But yeah, you can get all sorts of nightmarish issues with BSP holes and just all sorts of problems in these maps. Again, I'll have a video talking more about it. But that's just a kind of overview of it. Something's gone horribly wrong, I think is a succinct explanation of a BSP hole, which isn't there anymore. No. Yeah, this was a bit of a pain even back in the day, and this surface here is a zone portal, which is a whole bunch of other nonsense which we'll talk about. And yeah, this here is these are all just icons. I mean, you can't see these in the game, these are in the editor only. That's just an icon for the foghorn sound, and this stuff here is the triggers which put the text message up on the screen about this bridge is lowering, that bridge is raising, etc. And the kind of, it's probably not very easy to see on this, but that's like a volume. That's a volume, which is well, it's a volume, it's not a solid thing. I'm not actually sure what that one's for. It's probably naming the base. I'm not quite sure. Again, this is 15 years ago I was last working on this, so... And it's just frozen the editor as well. It's a little bit glitchy occasionally, this. Yeah, it's not liking that. It's just crashed. Oh well, I guess that's a great demonstration of what using this software can sometimes be like. Yeah, I think we'll just call it a day here, and I'll have a video at the end of all this, so thanks for staying with me.